Good day everyone. To continue the discussion about the Treaty of Peace between the United States and the Kingdom of Spain, or the Treaty of Paris, this historic treaty signed in 1898 brought an end to the Spanish-American War and had far-reaching consequences for both of the nations. Let's go over the preceding articles of the treaty, highlighting the agreements made and their impact. For the next slide, here are the table of contents or the following article I will discuss, which are the Article 6 up until the Article 11. To start, in the Article 6, upon signing this treaty, the Spain and the United States agreed to release all the prisoners of war and political detainees. This article covered prisoners detained during the insurrections in Cuba and the Philippines as well as the war itself. For example, during the siege of Manila, many Spanish soldiers were captured by the American forces. According to this treaty, those soldiers will be returned to Spain at Spain's expense, while the U.S. would also secure the release of the Spanish prisoners held by the Cuban or the Filipino insurgents. Both nations took responsibility for ensuring these prisoners' safe return home. Moving on to the Article 7, this article focuses on the waiver of indemnity claims. The U.S. and the Spain agreed to relinquish any claims for war damages, whether national or individual, arising from the Cuban insurrection and the war. For example, if a Spanish citizen in Cuba had their property destroyed during the conflict, Spain agreed to waive the right to seek compensation from the U.S. for these losses. Similarly, the U.S. waived any claims its citizens might have against Spain for war-related damages. This was a significant step to put aside the financial burdens of war and to promote the peace. Next, in the Article 8, Spain agreed to cede control of various territories to the U.S. This included the public property, buildings, forts, and other immovable assets in Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Spain relinquished this without affecting the rights of the private individuals, provinces, and municipalities who locally owned the property. For instance, if a church or private citizen owned land in the Philippines, that ownership will remain intact despite the change in sovereignty. In addition to property, Spain also agreed to transfer important sovereign documents and archives related to these territories. This meant that records such as yung land titles, court rulings, and official archives would be handed over to the U.S. authorities to ensure continuity in governance and record keeping. For the next slide, the treaty granted Spanish subjects residing in the ceded territories the option to either remain or leave. They were allowed to retain their property and business rights under the local laws. And Spanish citizens were also given a one-year period to declare their allegiance to Spain, or they would automatically adopt the nationality of the territory in which they will live. For example, a Spanish merchant living in Puerto Rico could choose to remain there and retain the Spanish nationality, or he could also adopt the U.S. citizenship. This provision ensured the transition of power didn't disrupt the personal lives and rights of Spanish citizens. For the next slide, in the Article 10 provided the people of the newly ceded territories with a guarantee of religious freedom. The United States recognized the importance of protecting religious practices in the regions like the Philippines, where Catholicism was deeply rooted due to the centuries of Spanish rule. This article assured that no matter what changes came with the shift in political power, inhabitants would be free to continue practicing their faith without any interference for the new government. Finally, Article 11 laid out the legal rights of the Spaniards residing in the ceded territories. Spaniards would be subjected to the same civil and criminal jurisdictions as the local citizens, meaning they would follow the same laws and be tried in the same courts as the inhabitants of these territories. For example, a Spanish landowner in Guam is involved in a legal dispute, it would be treated under the same legal framework as a U.S. citizen. They would have the equal access to the legal system and ensuring that their rights were respected under the new rule. Now, to summarize the key points, Article 6 addressed the release of the prisoners of the war and the political detainees with both the Spain and the U.S. covering the cost of the repatriation. Article 7 ensured a mutual waiver of indemnity claims, leaving the U.S. responsible for the handling of any claims by its citizens. And in the Article 8, dealt with the cession of the public properties and the exchange of the important documents related to the sovereignty and the governance. The Article 9, 10, and 11, it guaranteed that Spanish residents in the ceded territories could retain their property rights, choose their nationality, practice their religion freely, and have access to local courts. And the Treaty of Paris was instrumental in shaping the post-war order and the future of these territories. It not only ended the war, but it also sought to protect the individual rights and provide a framework for peaceful transition. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening.